Okay. So our next point of discussion would be this, that work from cellular and molecular point of view is conducting endergonic reactions. How do the cells conduct endergonic reactions? Fine. As such, if we have chemical reactions which are endothermic, how do we conduct them? How do we conduct them? How do we make the reactions happen if they are endergonic reaction, endothermic reactions? How do we make them happen?
By providing
Yes, by providing
temperature, external
heat, yeah, simply heat, by providing heat.
Yes.
But can we imagine a scenario in which we can heat cells, or cells are heated up somehow to carry out those endergonic reactions? Can that happen?
No, sir.
No,
No, definitely, because nature has designed life to operate at very moderate temperatures. That's what I told. What is the window of the life? 15 to 30 degrees Celsius. Most of the life exists in this window. Only about 15 degrees Celsius is the range. So that is not possible. The cells cannot use heat as a source of energy. So there are different sources of energies. You have been learning. There are different sources of energies. Heat is one source. There are many other sources also. Can you give one more example energy source apart from heat?
ATP.
ATP. Okay, but that's a specific example. Generally, what is this sort of energy called? Chemical energy, basically. Is it not? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what is chemical energy? Chemical energy is the energy liberated when bonds are broken or bonds are made. In most of the times, not bonds are made. When chemical bonds are broken, after all, a chemical bond is nothing but something which is formed due to the absorption of energy. So when you break a bond, an equivalent energy should be liberated, right? So cells, nature, life use this form of energy, chemical energy, for their survival, for their sustenance. Chemical energy is used. So when we have chemical energy which is used, what are some necessary things that should happen? First of all, there should be compounds which are energy rich. So when such compounds are broken down, the energy is liberated, and that energy is used to do endergonic reactions. So our first task is to find out which are these compounds in the cells which are high energetic and can be used whenever a cell wants to do endergonic reactions. The answer turns out to be one compound is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So how does ATP, what is the use of ATP basically? Maybe that you already know some information about ATP. You may know it as a energy rich molecule. It is a source of energy for cells, all these things. So in chemistry, what we are going to do, we are going to see the mechanism of this process. Why ATP is energy rich, how ATP is used for doing other reactions. Okay, so like I said, there are many endergonic reactions a cell has to do. If the cell doesn't do these endergonic reactions, it loses its ability to resist entropy. It loses its ability for survival even. It has to be continuously doing endergonic reactions. Therefore, there has to be continuous supply of ATP. Anyway, how does ATP come? That's a different story. Let us consider them later. Now, all those endergonic reactions which have to be done by the cell are coupled with one more reaction called ATP hydrolysis. When ATP is hydrolyzed, this reaction is called when ATP, what is the nature of ATP hydrolysis? The nature of ATP hydrolysis is ATP hydrolysis is exergonic reaction. Okay. So what is the delta G value of this exergonic reaction? The delta G value of this exergonic reaction, ATP hydrolysis, is okay. So can you see this reaction here? ATP to ADP plus inorganic phosphate. Of course, plus water should be one more reactant. That's the hydrolysis reaction. Adenose triphosphate, when hydrolyzed, becomes adenose diphosphate plus inorganic phosphate. Fine. Every chemical reaction has a value of delta G. What is the value of delta G for this chemical reaction? ATP hydrolysis. The answer is delta G is equal to minus 7.4 kilocalories per mole. Okay, I have not written down this in my slide. Anyways, I'm telling this. Minus 7.4 kilocalories per mole. So looking at this value and the sign of delta G, can you tell, is this an exergonic reaction or endergonic reaction?
Exergonic reaction.
Exergonic.
Very good. Exergonic reaction.
Exergonic
Yes, exergonic reaction.
reaction.
Correct. Good. Now, let us consider one endergonic reaction a cell has to do for its survival. That is this reaction. Glucose plus inorganic phosphate giving rise to glucose 6-phosphate. I think you know this. This is the first reaction in glucose metabolism. This is the first reaction in the glycolysis step, glucose metabolism. So all cells, universal reaction. This is universal reaction. All cells should do this reaction for the harvest, for harvesting the energy. They have to do this reaction. But it turns out that this reaction is endergonic reaction. What are these reaction? These are called, what are these? Okay, when I write diagrams like this, these are all called energy profiles of the reaction. So how an endergonic reaction looks like, energy profile. Why are some reactions endergonic? Because in endergonic reactions, the energy of the products is higher than energy of the reactants. See, the reactants are here, products are here. And exactly opposite in case of exergonic reactions. Reactants energy is higher, products energy is lower. So when reactants are getting converted to product, the delta E, the difference in energy, is liberated in exergonic reaction. Here, when reactants are getting converted to products, the delta E is positive. Why? Because the difference in the energy has to be absorbed by the reactants to become products. You know, energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. So when lower energy compounds are becoming higher energy compounds, where is that extra energy coming? There has to be some source of energy. And as I told you, in chemical reactions, that source is usually heat, ordinary chemical reactions. But in biological reactions, heat cannot be the source of energy. Therefore, some other means the cell has to find what is the source of this energy. And as I told, the source of this energy is nothing but ATP hydrolysis. Because ATP hydrolysis is an exergonic reaction which liberates energy. And now, what should be the strategy now? What should be the technique? Now, a cell has two reactions in its hand. One is an exergonic reaction, which is ATP hydrolysis. The other is an endergonic reaction, which is phosphorylation of glucose. So how the cell conducts an endergonic reaction is very interesting. How a cell conducts is, it couples exergonic reaction with endergonic reaction. Okay, so this is called, this process is called, or this phenomena is called energy coupling. Fine. An exergonic reaction is coupled with an endergonic reaction. So what is the benefit? The benefit is straightforward, very easy to understand. Why? Because an exergonic reaction liberates energy, endergonic reaction takes energy. When you couple them, endergonic reactions can be done. So what is the delta G of glucose phosphorylation? although I have not written it down again, delta G is around plus 5.2 kilocalories per mole. So when it is plus, naturally endergonic. What is the delta G value of ATP hydrolysis? Minus 7.4 kilocalories per mole. So obviously the ATP hydrolysis can be easily coupled with glucose phosphorylation. So instead of doing these two reactions separately, what do I mean by separately? One reaction ATP plus water, ADP plus PI. Another reaction glucose plus PI. What is PI? Inorganic phosphate. So glucose plus PI giving rise to glucose 6-phosphate. Instead of doing these two separate reactions, couple them. Couple glucose with ATP. And products are glucose 6-phosphate plus ADP. So what is the energy delta G value of this reaction? Now please understand. Okay, let us, for at least for easy calculation sake, let us think that this is minus 7 kilocalories per mole and this is plus 5 kilocalories per mole. What is the delta G value of the coupled reaction? Reaction number 3.
Minus.
Minus 2.
Minus how much?
Minus 2.
Very good. Minus 2 kilocalories per mole. So this is nothing but something called Hess law. Thermodynamics, basic laws of thermodynamics, Hess law. So what does Hess law tell? If a reaction is done individually or it is done in a, if the reaction is done in a single step or if the reaction is done in multi-steps, as long as the reactants and products are same, you can always add the energies or add the enthalpies of each step and get the overall enthalpy of the reaction. So you just have to add these enthalpies, delta G values, minus so much, and this is plus so much. You add them, you get this. So what is the product cell needs? Glucose 6-phosphate. If the cell was depending on endergonic reaction of direct phosphorylation of glucose, could the cell have got glucose 6-phosphate? Could the cell have got it? No, of course, because this is an endergonic reaction. Could not have happened spontaneously. Therefore, the cell has coupled this with one more high energy reaction, ATP hydrolysis, to get the product of its choice, glucose 6-phosphate. So this is a very simple, typical representation or a typical example of glucose phosphorylation, which is an endergonic reaction coupled with exergonic reaction. So like this, we'll come back to this. That was an example. So what are these ATP coupled reactions? Very important life process, ATP coupled reactions. So ATP coupled reactions are all those endergonic reactions which are conducted by the cell by coupling them with the hydrolysis of ATP. Okay, now my question is this. How many endergonic reactions are there in a cell? Or how many endergonic reactions a cell has to conduct for its survival? Can you make any guess? I just gave one example, glucose 6-phosphate production. But how many such reactions are there in a cell for its overall growth and survival? How many reactions it has to conduct? Innumerable. Innumerable reactions endergonic it has to conduct. However, although innumerable endergonic reactions are there, all these reactions have a commonality. They are coupled with a single reaction of ATP hydrolysis. Are you understanding? So ATP hydrolysis is a universal exergonic reaction which the cell uses to conduct all endergonic reactions. Okay, so now for a cell to conduct endergonic reaction, what is that it needs? Can anybody answer this question? What is that it needs, a cell? if it has to conduct endergonic reactions. It needs only one thing. What is that one thing it needs?
Energy.
No, yeah, come on, yeah, very general answer, energy. ATP it needs, is it not?
Yes,
Hello?
sir.
It
Yes,
simply
sir.
needs
Yes, sir.
ATP. It simply needs ATP. As long as ATP is there inside the cell is living, the cell is conducting endergonic reactions. Fine. So ATP is there. Now we will look into the other part of the story. What is the other part of the story? When all these endergonic reactions are happening, what happens to the ATP level in the cell? Does it go down or simply stay like that? Stay at that level.
It must be more.
Hmm? What happens to the ATP store? ATP levels decreases, right? Is it not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Decreases.
Yes.
So when ATPs are decreasing and all these endergonic reactions are happening, cell cannot afford this, right? It should keep on doing one more thing. Of course, it should do endergonic reactions, one part of the story. It should also at the same time keep renewing the ATP store, keep synthesizing ATPs also. Okay. So how are ATP synthesized is our next question. How are ATP synthesized? How are ATP synthesized? Okay, fine. I'll tell you, I will give you the answer for this. ATPs are synthesized by only two pathways in a cell, only two pathways. Which are those two pathways through which ATP is synthesized? Substrate level phosphorylation, oxidative phosphorylation. Okay, so we will look into these things later. What are substrate level phosphorylation and oxidative phosphorylation? So these are the two things, two pathways a cell uses to make ATPs. And our ATP is used in innumerable ways. They are coupled to a lot diverse set of endergonic reactions which are constantly carried out by the cell. Okay, so now ATP is like, if we compare this to a scenario in our world, in human societies, we earn money. I mean, if you want anything on this world, what is that you require? What is that you need? You want to buy something. You want
Money.
to, huh? What is that you need?
Money.
Money, good, yeah, of course, yes, money. Anybody needs it. Everybody needs money. From buying simplest of the thing to buying, for example, a jumbo jet, still you require money. As long as you have this money, you can buy anything. But at the same time, you should be earning money also. You can't have a stock of money and then simply keep expending it. You should be earning money also. You can earn money through various ways. You work, you do business in various ways. But the currency, the money, is playing a role of exchanger, is it not? For example, a farmer wants to buy a motorcycle. Can he give his produce, for example, his crops? He has grown ragi, let us think. He has grown paddy. Can he go and give this ragi paddy directly to the motorcycle showroom and get the motorbike?
No, sir.
Definitely not. What should he do to get the motorbike?
He should have to pay the money.
He should first sell it, right? He should first sell his paddy, ragi, whatever the crop, get money, and go and give the money. Using this money, go and get your motorbike. Or using this money, you go and get your car. Whatever you want, you get. So what is the role money is playing in our human societies, in our lives? It is an exchanger of things. Similarly, ATPs. Cells earn ATPs through two pathways, phosphorylation pathways, substrate level phosphorylation and oxidative phosphorylation, and they make ATPs. Now this ATP is like currency, like money. Using this ATP, they can buy anything. So what do we mean by buying here? Cells. They can conduct any endergonic reaction, which are expensive, which are energy expensive, energy costly. They can conduct any endergonic reaction. So by this analogy, can I tell that ATP is like the currency of the living world? Like it is rupees, dollars, and all in our human world. Can I tell that this is the currency of the living world? ATP is currency of the living world?
Yes, sir.
Yes, of course. ATP is the currency of the living world. Therefore, we have this, of course, I don't have that chart. Usually in the class, I would have written that chart on the board and explained it. I can show you in the next class. So ATP is in between exchanger. Two pathways make ATP. Different pathways take away ATPs. So now these two phosphorylation steps, substrate level phosphorylation and oxidative phosphorylation, for them to happen, what is required? You require nutrient molecules like glucose or lipids or amino acids. So as long as cell fine. Now, you can use a single nutrient source and grow a lot of microbes, for example. Is it not? For example, if you want to grow yeasts, simply, you can just feed sugar. So you get the products of ethanol and carbon dioxide. Or you can grow a lot of organisms using single nutrient source like sugar. So essentially, if there are carbohydrates, a cell is getting carbohydrates, it can live. Why? Glucose can be used for substrate level phosphorylation as well as oxidative phosphorylation and make ATPs. As long as cell has ATPs, happy, it can conduct all endergonic reactions and it can do all the things what we discussed previous class. It can do spontaneous, non-spontaneous reactions, it can do endergonic reactions, it can resist the change in entropy, all this. Fine. So this is where the whole, if you have to put the metabolism in a nutshell, the study and the scope of metabolism is too much. There are numerous metabolic pathways you have to study to understand even bare minimum functions of cell. You have to study numerous metabolic pathways. But if you have to put the whole metabolism in a nutshell, what would be the picture? What would be the answer? It's simply like nutrient molecules going through either substrate level phosphorylation or oxidative phosphorylation or both, giving rise to ATPs. And ATPs being used for a large number of reactions a cell performs. So this is what the summary of the metabolism is. So please stop your video, Kavya. Okay. So in our next class, we'll go into the chemistry of this. In the sense, what is the structure of ATP and where the hydrolysis takes place, the cleavage point, why ATP hydrolysis is so much energetic. All these questions we will answer in our next class. But yesterday and today, what we did in our previous class and today's class, we just tried to understand the role ATP plays in this whole cycle of life existence of life, even the role ATP plays. That's the currency of the life, energy currency. So fine. Maybe in the next class, I will go into the details of ATP production. ATP structure. So I hope that you have followed 2 classes of mine. And if you have any questions, you please ask. If you have any questions, you please ask. You can ask questions if you have. Okay.